Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to Kernels of Truth, brought to you by Progress Kentucky. Thanks so much for joining us to discuss the breaking Kentucky political news of the week. We are excited to continue to cover Governor Beshear's moment in the sun and how his DNC appearance went both Monday and Tuesday nights under the bright lights in Chicago. As a special treat, we're going to check in with Hadley Duvall, who shared her powerful story of sexual abuse survivorship on the national stage. Making it clear to all paying attention that Kamala Harris is the candidate of reproductive freedom. We'll then cover a less exciting couple of stories: sexual assault on the Lexington Council, allegedly creepy text from Rep. Daniel Grossberg, allegedly, and then we'll have an interview with Edelen Renewables VP of Social Impact, Brad Clark, to hear about how leadership from the Biden administration is changing the clean energy landscape of Kentucky and the nation. Finally, we're going to close out with a November call to action. So before we get into it, first we want to check in and make sure you are ready to help turn Kentucky purple. We are glad you're here. We hope you agree with us that Kentucky deserves far better than Mitch McConnell, Rand Paul, Jamie Comer, Big Banks, Andy Barr, or really any of the folks who represent us back in D.C. With the supermajorities in the General Assembly constantly looking to block our governor time and time again from moving Kentucky forward. But despite the challenges facing our fair Commonwealth, we've had some significant highlights. We rejected Amendment 2 Classic, to keep abortion protections in our state constitution. We reelected Andy Beshear. Obviously, we can get things done in this state, but it's clear there's still lots of work to do to win better electoral outcomes. Unless you want your tax dollars siphoned away from public schools and sent to unaccountable religious schools or just kicked back to rich folks. Between now and this November, 76 days from now, we are going to be working for better electoral outcomes in Kentucky. We hope you'll support Progress Kentucky in our campaign for a more compassionate Commonwealth. Make a contribution right now via our secure online website. Act Blue to help turn Kentucky purple. $5, $50, $500. It all adds up. It all makes a difference, and none of it is tax deductible. So let's go ahead and check in with our co-hosts. Let us know who you are, where you are, what are you protesting today. So you there on the internet, we'd like to hear what you are thinking about. What's on your protest sign today? Feel free to put it in the chat while we're sharing ours. I'm Aaron. I'm coming to you from Childsburg, which is a lovely community in the outskirts of Lexington, just right pressing up against the growth boundary. And my sign today says, the U.S. presidency is a black job. Take that, Trump. All right. Do we have Kimberly? Are you there, Kimberly?
I sure am. I sure am. Sorry you can't see my beautiful face today. But I'm coming to you live from Jefferson County, which Louisville is a part of Jefferson County. And my protest sign says this right here, especially some of our Democrats in Kentucky. When you are running for an office, let's get it together, make sure we have the right people signing the document, and let's make sure that we're running to win. Because, the other side will always do that.
Yeah, no, for sure. If you're going to run to win. I buy that. Awesome. And now, Nate, are you there? Are you joining us?
I am joining y'all. Hey, folks, Nate Orshan here from lovely South Frankfort, just a stone's throw from the governor's mansion. And I guess this week my protest sign is just an adulation sign. Andy, OMG, 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 Andy, OMG, OMG, OMG. Meaning I was thrilled. I was such a fanboy to see him speaking at the DNC the other night. And I was so moved to see Hadley, who, her picture is Hadley Duvall, whose picture is next to the word brave in the dictionary for sure. And, we might be hearing from her. So that's it for me.
Awesome. Well, thanks everybody for joining us. It's a moment of adulation, I think, across the board. If you are like, I would say all of us, kind of freakish about your political focus, you've probably been watching the DNC and you've probably seen some cool stuff happening there for sure. It's a lot. It's a lot of programming. It's a lot of hours. You can be forgiven if you haven't seen it all, because who's got that kind of time, really? But there's definitely been some amazing primetime moments. And I think for this story, I want to throw it over to Kimberly to walk us through what is going on with a Kentucky focus there in Chicago.
Well, Aaron, I just have to say that I felt so proud to see our great governor and Hadley out there on the big stage, prime time at that. So, our Kentucky Governor Andy Beshear took the stage at the Democratic National Convention Monday night to speak on abortion rights and how to bridge the divide created by anger politics, and back Vice President Kamala Harris for president. In about a 5-minute speech, he repurposed some of the campaign trail for his 2023 reelection campaign for a countrywide audience. Bashir was introduced on stage by Hadley Duvall, and he immediately started praising Hadley as one of the bravest people that he's ever met, as she has shared her story. And I think most of our listeners do know the story of Hadley. If not, um, she was taken advantage of by her stepfather for many, many years. Many years. So our governor was up there. Hadley did an excellent, excellent job. Like, she was just born to be an activist for this particular cause. And our governor, he's ready. He's ready to do whatever Kamala asks of him to do. And how did you guys feel when you saw Andy up there in Hadley? Like, did it make your heart just swell with pride? Like, oh my God, they're representing Kentucky.
Yeah, I thought it was just amazing to see Hadley. Obviously she's been on the show. We're going to try to check in with her later. But she, has really, I think, taken to, sharing her story wherever she can, wherever she thinks it's going to be helpful and useful and politically advantageous to do so. She was a game changer for Andy's re-election campaign against Dan Cameron. And she is just, I think, really met the moment that the repeal of Roe v. Wade really demands. And she's like just a rock star, using her horrible, horrible, painful story to be emblematic of why those protections are so crucial and so critical. And yeah, I don't know. It's like so glad that she's claimed her story in such a powerful way, and I think she just shined at the DNC for sure. Nate?
Yeah, I definitely. I'm astounded continually by Hadley Duvall's bravery, and I was so gratified by Andy's speech and his stage presence, literal, up there. Though I have to say, he got off the stage, and we're cheering in the house and everything, and then Senator Raphael Warnock comes on afterwards, and that was an amazing speech, and all I could think of was, thank God Andy didn't have to follow that, because that would have been really, really hard.
Yeah, I think that was the right order. I think that was definitely the right order for that night.
Andy is the opener. Yeah,
Warnock was phenomenal. Also, then went into of course, President Biden's remarks, which I think love Uncle Joe. He's been amazing on so many levels. But it's like, wow, Warnock just gave a speech that was way better than you. And a lot shorter. That was like so. I also, was like very sad that President Biden was like off of prime time because they couldn't run the actual run of show tight enough to keep him on during prime time. But yeah, I don't know. It was it's it was a good opening for the DNC for sure. And again, yeah, just so proud of Hadley and Governor Beshear, and the fact that Kentucky had such a positive role to play in that important national conversation.
Yeah.
All right, so we got another couple stories we want to cover. This one is you're going to hang with us for a minute. It's a little interesting. So this continues to be like how Andy is handling his time in the national spotlight, because he's getting booked on a lot of big national shows. He was on MSNBC's Morning Joe to discuss abortion rights. This story comes to us from the Kentucky Lantern, like most of our best content. And so he was on Morning Joe, and here's what he said. Think about what some people have had to go through because of these laws. J.D. Vance calls pregnancy resulting from rape inconvenient. Inconvenience is traffic. I mean, it's make him go through this, Beshear said. It's someone being violated, someone being harmed, and then telling them they don't have options after that. That fails any test of decency, of humanity. But here's the thing. It also shows they don't have any empathy at all. And as a president and a vice president, and the president and the vice president have to have empathy. So that statement right there got J.D. Vance and the GOP performative outrage police all in a dither, because he said, make him go through this, which obviously he didn't mean make J.D. Vance go. It's not like he's wishing it upon anyone. He was just, it's a turn of phrase. It's like, good God, people, you got to put yourself in somebody else's shoes. But yeah, this was like immediate backlash, because J.D. Vance is doing everything in his power to try to make himself not look weird. But I think this didn't exactly help. The idea that, he's like, oh my gosh, where's his, why is he wishing that a member of my family would get raped? J.D. Vance said, what a disgusting person. Obviously, he didn't wish this to happen. What a ridiculous statement. This is like, I don't know. It kind of like the opening of the Olympics. Like, there are people just looking to be outraged. They're hoping to find any opportunity to be outraged and to weaponize that outrage into clicks or retweets or whatever social media, feeding the beast of their like right-wing outrage machine, which is, running on fumes right now, because the other side is just so like buoyed by joy and hope, and all the the right wing has right now is just like outrage and grievance, and it's just kind of sad, and it's a little weird. And there have been a number of, I think, really funny couch references for the past few weeks, and I think J.D. Vance continues to be really pissed off that that's how he's being characterized in the national press. So I don't know. I thought this was like definitely ridiculous, the degree to which they immediately jumped on this and tried to make it a thing. I just don't think it's a thing. I don't know. What do you guys think? Anyone?
I will defer to Kimberly, but there you are.
What is there to say at this point? I mean, what is there to say? I think, Aaron, you pretty much laid it out for our viewers and listeners, exactly what's going on. And once again, another one of the phrases that I like to use is that I don't know.
I love that phrase. I don't know. I use it frequently throughout my day. Good. Thank you, Kimberly, for that insightful commentary.
It's not just Aaron.
You got anything, Nate? Like, no, like I was
yeah, well, so the whole thing about these ultra conservatives and denying reproductive health services, specifically abortion, to minors who need it because of sexual assault, incest, all that good stuff. It sort of is of a piece with a lot of what I take to be his bottom line for his famous book, Hillbilly Elegy, right? And which is basically, you know, a sad portrait of a region of the country and Appalachia and people who are, you know, living lives of desperation and dying deaths of desperation and all that kind of thing. And the takeaway is always, you brought this on yourself. You should know better. You should have better values. This is all your fault, what's happening to you. You know, that's the kind of meta thing that I take away from a book like Hillbilly Elegy. And in a sense, that's what people like J.D. Vance are saying to these minors who you know, need abortions because of what happened to them. You know, they're not saying it out and out, but it's sort of, there's this judgment happening that, you know.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, so that's what I think. And needless to say, I'm not a fan of Mr. Vance, and I'm proud of our governor for taking him down.
J.D. Vance is an absolute joke. I think, you know, and you know, I don't know what the over under is, but if Trump could figure out a way to fire him, I think he would, you know. All right, so if you want to take a look at that story, the performative outrage, feel free to do so. We got two kind of ugly stories we want to get through fairly quickly, but let's just do this right now. Nate, let's go to Hadley, because that's the kind of subject matter we've been touching on, and then we can wrap it up after checking.
Yes.
So really excited, super excited to be joined right now by Hadley Duvall, who of course is, you know, our Shiro for sure, our reproductive rights activist, who I would like to say, yes, she had already, you know, totally set the stage for the governor's reelection campaign before we had her on, but I don't think she went totally national until after she was on Kernels of Truth the first time. So I'm pretty sure it's the Kernels of Truth bump that, you know, got this all happening. Hadley, welcome. Thank you so much. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me. You definitely gave me the bump that I needed to get where I was at. So thank you so much.
Yeah, no. So how much are you hanging out with Kamala Harris these days? Is she like right now off camera? Are you guys just pals?
So I wouldn't say pals yet. I would say like I'm blessed to be considered an acquaintance. But no, seriously, she is amazing. But there are a few of us surrogates who we kind of all tackle the campaign trail together. I'll go to some places, they'll go to some battleground states, while Kamala and Tim are also out campaigning, and we hit them all. And that way, you know, we're not just interacting with one state at a time. She has people everywhere at all times who carry her message, and she really devotes her time into making sure that we're prepared to carry her message, and we have everything that we need to be able to educate everybody on her policies and what we stand for. And to be able to do that, and to know that I'm trusted enough to get in front of a press camera for her and speak about what she stands for, is a true honor.
I mean, it's amazing. And you did such a phenomenal job, you know, under those bright lights in Chicago. What was that experience like for you?
It was surreal, honestly. It really was. Governor Beshear and I were actually backstage talking about how crazy it was that, you know, not even a year ago, I was filming an ad for him, and now here we are. He was potentially going to be a VP pick, and he has helped with so much. He has also gone and campaigned on behalf of Kamala Harris, and like that is just so huge. It was one of the biggest nights of his career, and definitely the biggest night of my life. And to share that with the person who really got me started was super, super special. And it was really, you know, a dream come true. To, you know, the reason we were there was sad, but to be heard in that capacity, to be felt and moved in that capacity, was just more than I could really ask for.
Awesome. I don't want to like hog your time, but Nate or Kimberly, questions for Hadley?
I just want to say to Hadley, I saw it in real time, and I was so proud of you. Um, just hearing your statement made me want to get up and do something, right? And then right after you, our governor, I mean, that was the 1-2 knockout, right? And I think that from here, I believe that it's nothing from but success from here.
Thank you.
Awesome. Nate?
Yeah, so I'm so happy that you're well. Just I'll get the fanboy stuff out of the way. That thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. But so they're going to be sending you out to battleground states to be sort of a surrogate, which is awesome. Isn't this your senior year at Midway?
I just graduated in May, so I was going to be starting grad school in this month, but I have postponed that. I've kind of put that back a little bit so I can focus completely on the campaign because I have been traveling a lot. I've already been to a couple of places in Michigan, a couple of places in Wisconsin, North Carolina, Atlanta, Pennsylvania. So I'm out and about. I'm on the move, doing whatever I can to help, and I'm helping with local elections in Kentucky as well. So I'm kind of just really helping everybody that I can because it's not just about voting for Kamala. It's about voting Democratic all the way down because we have got to win back what we can.
Awesome. So true. And I will text you later about an event we're putting together. But I think that, it's not just a national conversation. That's so important that you nailed that, right? Because obviously you made you initially broke your story. I mean, besides your social media post, with that statewide ad with Andy about putting abortion on the ballot, and you guys won. Like, you helped Andy win. He was pretty clear about it, I think. And now here we are. We still have no abortion access in Kentucky, right? So, like, how do we change the dynamic? And do we still have you have? I don't think we do. No, technical difficulties. That's what happens.
Yeah.
Yes. So Hadley, what a rock star! So glad she jumped back on to share that experience, and so glad she shared that experience, with the nation. It was like so incredibly powerful to witness. So, all right. So we're going to jump back into those other two stories we wanted to finish out with. Again, there's more of the kind of ugly stories. I kind of debated, do I want to talk about this stuff? But it's news, it's Kentucky politics, it's happening, and we got to cover it. So the first story was that Daniel Grossberg, former friend of the show, is running into some problems. He's been accused of some, I don't know, inappropriate texts or something of that nature. And he has now been removed from his interim committees because of those allegations. It's like I said, it's ugly. It's annoying. And I just got a text from Hadley. She has no idea what happened or why she got kicked out, but but she's all right. Just so everyone knows. Yeah. So Anna White, who, in the interest of full disclosure, is our attorney. She's also an attorney representing Grossberg. She said that the LRC's conduct is problematic, and that there was no sexual misconduct found or shared with her or Representative Grossberg. And so the idea that he's been removed from his committees is an overreach, according to her. So this is, the guy's elected. Obviously, if he's been alleged to do anything, that's a problem. I don't know, like, what the adjudication of these allegations is, but it seems like he should have his moment of, like, guilty or innocent until proven guilty, as I thought the way our law worked. But it seems like politically that's not quite the same. I don't know. It just seems ugly and problematic across the board. But I'm interested to hear what you guys think about, the untoward tweets that he might have sent, and how he, like, what does that mean for him as a lawmaker, and how do his, how do his constituents continue to get representation in this situation? Anyone been following this story?
I just heard something, Kimberly, if I can just jump in. I heard something about it the other day, but it wasn't clear to me whether there was it was a non-consensual or consensual. It sounds more like it was just like, hey, I didn't ask for this, which is a type of harassment. I'll say this: I'm glad to hear that it's going to be sort of gone through methodically. Because one thing about the Democratic Party is we are really good about getting rid of somebody when they've done something, wrong. But and here I'm thinking about the old Senator Al Franken, right? Who was, he did a very inappropriate picture. He thought it was funny, but it was not. And that probably could have gotten a little more of a hearing, maybe literally a hearing, but maybe we didn't have to lose a good Democratic senator over it. Maybe it was appropriate. I don't know. But I just recall that there was a rush to judgment, a rush to just get him off, as quickly as possible, because we're not like the Republicans, and I'm just glad to see that we're going to maybe do things in a little more methodical way. And it's funny, and we have sort of two stories like that tonight, but we'll get to the other one in a second, I guess.
Yeah, Kimberly, did you want to weigh in on the Daniel Grossberg allegations?
I'm just really, really surprised. I know Daniel, and sometimes it just makes you wonder, are these things true or not true? And one thing that I can say is that he wasn't very liked, should I say. He ran against an incumbent, and I think that was the start of the disrespect that some people had for him. But Daniel's always seemed like a cool guy or whatever, but you never know what people are doing behind closed doors. And allegedly they're saying this, and allegedly they're saying that. But the whole deal in the nutshell is, who's going to replace him?
Well, yeah, I mean, I guess like I don't know if you can get kicked out of office for inappropriate texts or harassing texts. I don't know. Like, again, all of this is alleged. We'll see what happens. But yeah, it's absolutely I don't know. He is not a political insider. He is not like a guy that anyone who runs against an incumbent is not going to be part of the political establishment when you win, right? Unless the situation is very is very clear on a lot of levels. So this one was not, and I think it'll be interesting to see how it plays out. And I wonder if what this all means. That's all I'm going to say. It's about as clear as mud to me about what's happening here. But I did want to just elevate the story because it's in the news, and it's it's one that I think our viewers should know about, right? So and then one more, and then we'll get to our guests because we're a little bit behind schedule now. But so this one hits close to home. If folks have been a long time viewer of this show, back to the days we were Moscow Mitch Monday, one of our original founding co-hosts was Denise Gray. Denise Gray left the show because she was going to run for office again, and she ran and won a city council seat. And now she has alleged that another city council member, Brenda Monarez, has sexually assaulted her, been sexually aggressive a couple of times. The Fayette Circuit Court judge agreed and granted an order of protection and said that Monarez needs to work from home to avoid council member Gray. Because they, their offices are in the same small area of City Hall. She's going to attend council meetings and committee meetings virtually, so the two are not physically in the same area. But really, just an unfortunate situation, a horrible, tragic, horrible situation. And my heart goes out to Denise. And I don't think she wanted this to become a huge public spectacle. But of course, these are all public proceedings, so it's going to happen and it's going to get out. But yeah, that she alleged that Monarez took advantage of her while she was intoxicated back in 2021, and that more recently she grabbed her and tried to kiss her while the two were in a car. So no criminal charges have been filed, but an order of protection has been granted. And again, my heart goes out to Denise. But yeah, just nasty, ugly stuff that happens. They're both Democrats. Being a Democrat doesn't mean you're apparently beyond reproach ethically, but it does mean that we air our stuff in a way that I don't think the Republicans necessarily do. So you guys have anything on this one? Like, no, thanks.
Yeah.
No one excited.
Awkward much? I mean, yeah, no, it's just bad all around. And I do appreciate that it's, again, like with the last story, that there's going to be sort of some kind of process. Although it sounds like Denise is not filing charges per se, so I don't know what happens after that, if you just have like a restraining order or something like that, but you're not trying to, sue them or actually file a criminal complaint. Here's a sort of weird sidebar thing just that I noticed, because I was looking over the latest story from Herald Leader's Beth Musgrave. Sort of toward the bottom, there's the sentence: Gray and Monarez, both unmarried, are first-term council members. And I'm like, if they were men, would they have said they're unmarried? What does their marital status have to do with anything? And
Do they have cats? I mean, that's the real question.
Well,
do they have cats?
Exactly. If the implication is like, they're not like other women because they're not married, and so that's a little, even though it's a little throwaway thing, it adds up a little bit for me. So not that doesn't have an effect on what transpired and is alleged to have transpired, but I think, especially for something that, let's face it, there's like some salacious details, right? So in a sense, it's like catnip for any news publication. I get that, but the unmarried thing, like, really? Anyway,
a little gross for sure. I've seen online comments that are not kind about either of them, and that's just gross. Parker Williams in the chat points out that due to the city charter, Brenda can't be removed because of this behavior, but the voters can. So in November, Gray doesn't have an opponent, but Monarez is facing Emma Curtis. If folks recall, Emma Curtis, who ran for Adriel Camuel's now a seat not that long ago. So up and coming political individual candidate Emma Curtis is on the ballot. So anyway. So let's move on. We do want to get to our guest. Really important conversation to have right now. So we're going to bring on Brad Clark, who is the Vice President of Social Impact with Edelen Renewables. We were going to have Adam Edelen, who is the guy for Edelen Renewables, but he's had some scheduling difficulties, some crises to fires to put out, etc. I don't think anything's actually on fire. But really important we talk about what is going on with the renewable energy universe, right? So 2 years ago last Friday, there's a story coming to us from Newsweek. 2 years ago last Friday, President Joe Biden signed into law one of the signature pieces of legislation of his presidency, the Inflation Reduction Act, which, despite its name, doesn't mention energy or climate change, but it is the single biggest investment in clean energy in history. And by far America's most aggressive action to curb climate change. In fact, the largest investment in the country, in the world, rather. So really setting the high watermark for clean energy investment. Most of the climate action comes in the form of tax credits to incentivize renewable energy development, cleaner manufacturing, the purchase of low pollution products such as heat pumps and electric vehicles. These tax incentives have triggered a wave of private sector investment. So public-private investment with more than $265 billion in clean energy projects announced since the IRA's passage. That's according to the White House. Some 3.4 million American families claim more than $8.4 billion in tax credits to help offset costs of things like rooftop solar installations, more efficient appliances, home energy audits, electric vehicles. So really, it's been a game changer for clean energy. So, with that 2-year mark, I think this is a super low profile piece of policy that the Biden administration should be incredibly proud of, because it just shows that the Biden administration was serious about tackling climate change and has put huge resources into doing it. But we wanted to hear from folks locally who are in the middle of that clean energy revolution. So really thrilled to be joined right now by Brad Clark with Edelen Renewables. Brad, how are you today?
Great. How are you all? Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So glad to check in with you. So yeah, we've had Adam on the show in the past. We know Edelen Renewables does exciting projects in areas that I think really need them. Can you tell us a little bit about some of the projects you guys are working on right now, and maybe the role of the IRA and helping make those a reality?
Sure. So, I mean, really at a high level for our listeners, the IRA accelerated clean energy expansion in ways that we could not have anticipated before it passed. And so all of a sudden, the private capital necessary, which is large amounts of private capital to build these projects, right, is now de-risked and unlocked and ready to be deployed, especially in energy communities, former coal communities, areas of the U.S. with tribal governments, which don't necessarily apply to us here in Kentucky. But it incentivizes a host of behaviors from the private sector that pencil projects that didn't pencil beforehand. And so what's really exciting about that is that it does create a boom of local jobs while these projects are being constructed. There's heavy machine operators that are required to move the earth, especially on abandoned mine lands, which we have in abundance here in Kentucky, that are sort of lying dormant right now and ready to be activated. You have laborers, you have wiring and electrical work, you have people driving pylons, you have on the back end of these projects, you'll have operation and management teams that are subcontractors to do security and maintain the land. And so, I think that we have another 30 projects across the state, utility scale projects that have cleared construction with the Public Service Commission, but have yet to break ground. And so we're at the very cusp of what will be rapid deployment of solar across the state. And Edelen Renewables has been there from the start. And so in my role at Edelen Renewables, I help engage workforce development, education and workforce entities, community liaison work with community stakeholders, foundations, nonprofits, and try to work to create as many local jobs as possible. And so Martin County, Kentucky, Martin County Solar Project, very soon will actually be completing the first phase of their construction project. And we'll see electrons on the grid probably by the end of October. Right. And so
that's awesome.
It's super exciting. And the Martin County Solar Project, what we're learning from our social impact solar work there, will roll into projects in the Perry, Knott, and Breathitt County areas here next summer and then the following. And so, and we have plans across the state, other projects that are in the pipeline that we're really excited about. And so, if we can create jobs for local households, and those workers can also earn an industry credential that allows them to either go to the next work site, construction site for solar, or allows them to start their own contracting firm, or allows them to, get an electrician's apprenticeship program started for themselves. And so, it's just an exciting time. And I think we're at the right place at the right time to build the clean energy infrastructure that recruits the next wave of corporate entities into the state, which is what we need to do, right? Advanced manufacturing, electric vehicle batteries, all of that requires clean energy on the portfolio in order to make products that are, going to meet the needs of consumers for the next couple generations.
That's a really good point. I think we'd like to kind of dig in there a little bit. So you said, for these projects to pencil out, that IRA kind of tax guarantee, really, really critical. What else does it take for those projects to really pencil out, right? So who are the players for, a typical Edelen Renewables project? Because, I know that here in Kentucky, and we can get into this a little bit later, our politicians are not thrilled about the idea of solar energy. They're so wedded, kind of culturally, politically, financially, perhaps wedded to coal that they want to stop anything from shutting down a coal plant. And we aren't seeing a ton of, clean energy or energy demand growth in Kentucky. Our population's fairly flat, right? So, where are these projects coming from? How are they showing up?
Sure. So, you have multiple stakeholder groups that are involved in any project. You have the landowner, and oftentimes in the case of abandoned mine lands or, reclaimed mine lands, those may very well be a coal operator or a coal company that is wanting to unlock the revenue bond, do reclamation work, or repurpose that land to generate annual revenue. And, most of the time these solar installations run on anywhere from 20 to 40 year leases. And so to be able, if you're a landowner and you can maintain ownership of the land and generate revenue per acre or per kilowatt hour, however you want to do that equivalency, it's motivating, right? You also have local government agencies and entities, county governments, city governments, that need tax revenue, right? And so, Martin County Solar Project, for the next 30 plus years, that project will be most likely the primary corporate tax entity in the area. They'll pay taxes that provide infrastructure for the roads and hopefully the water systems and some of that necessary public service need that is met there. And so you have government agencies at the local level. You also have larger developers sometimes that are involved in these projects that have experience managing essentially the general contractor, the engineering, procurement, and construction, or EPC contractor. And these are massive construction projects, right? You imagine a general contractor, how hard it is to find a general contractor for your house. And then you multiply that by a magnitude that is sort of hard to believe until it's happening. And so, these EPCs, these construction entities, they're essential to unlocking the private capital, because the private capital has to have confidence that the construction project is going to get done, that it's going to create electrons, and it's going to be done on time. And so you also have local education and workforce organizations that provide the talent at the local level. Solar projects are a great first job for a student coming out of a CTE program that might have an OSHA 10 and needs a first experience. It's a great opportunity for people that are looking for a second chance coming out of different challenges that they may have faced. And so for a worker to come earn prevailing wages or living wages, wages well above the median for the region, and then gain confidence, gain work experience, gain a reference, earn an industry credential, it's important, right? And then the very last piece is you typically have an off-taker of some sort for that energy, whether that's a corporate off-taker, like in Martin County Solar Project, Toyota's buying the power off of that. Or you have a utility or a co-op or a municipality of some sort that is going to purchase that power.
Yeah. So Toyota, because they've kind of made some of these, zero carbon, net carbon commitments, they need to find renewable energy to kind of come on to their grid so they can pencil that out, right? Like that's, I think, probably a big component of it. I
mean, that's true for every Fortune 500 company, right? That they have commitments that their consumers demand. What I love about this entire model is that it's market driven. So consumers going forward, especially in the younger generations, they're expecting more from where their dollars are going and what they're purchasing. And so, you're seeing Fortune 500s that are looking at where to locate their factory or their production line or what have you. They're looking for if there's clean energy accessible where they're locating. And that's now a factor that is driving decision making and where private capital is investing in new jobs in communities.
Yep, that all makes a lot of sense, and it does seem like it's a real consideration for big corporate decisions right now about whether there's the clean energy that they require for their own commitments, as you say. I know that we were in the running for like a clean aluminum smelter, but that clean aluminum smelter has to have clean energy to make it a clean smelter. A lot, a lot of it. And last time I checked, Kentucky was dead last in the country for renewable energy generation. So I hope your 30 projects are very big, and I hope they're just
not all ours. All 30 aren't ours. It's just it's the landscape, right?
Okay. Okay.
So.
Well, then I hope you get 30 so that we can.
Well, if we were to expand community solar in Kentucky and have the ability to have some smaller projects, especially on mine lands in the western and eastern parts of the state, that could actually go to energy affordability outcomes for households, especially low to moderate income households, it'd be easy to get to 30, and we would reduce energy costs for households by 15% almost immediately. So that's what we should really think about.
Yeah, you should tell us that one more time slower for the people who are not paying attention. So what are you saying in terms of 15% decrease in power costs?
So, I mean, where you have community solar legislation across the United States.
And can you define that? Just like, I don't know that that's something that everyone knows what it is.
Yeah, so community solar is typically somewhere in the 5 to 25 acre range, whereas these utility scale projects typically have to be over 500 acres, and they're typically closer to 1,000 acres.
How big's Martin stage 1?
About 1,500 acres.
Okay, yeah,
right.
Big.
Yeah, so it's massive. It's going to be so cool. I can't wait till you all are able to see it. Yeah, so community solar, really what it does is it creates energy that goes onto the grid at a much smaller scale, but most legislation across the U.S., which Kentucky doesn't have this legislation in place, and we should, really goes to energy affordability outcomes for households in that area of the grid. And so typically it's about a 15% reduction in energy costs. And in Eastern Kentucky, where you're going to see a 15% rise in energy costs over the next decade, it's a really important proactive step that we need to take. So because right now the cheapest energy to be had is solar energy, right? Like solar is cheaper than anything else you can do. You're not going to be able to build a new natural gas fired power plant that can compete with the cost of solar energy. Large upfront costs, but gets significantly cheaper over time. Yeah. Amazing. All right. So I want to throw it to my co-host because this is like, a passion of mine, but I want to make sure that I don't just take up all the oxygen. Nate, any questions for Brad or Kimberly?
Yeah. So when I think about it, my sense is that there's this kind of ongoing hostility to renewable energy on the part of conservative political leadership, both, here in Kentucky and nationally. So from that, I take that there's almost like a kind of cultural distaste for these types of projects, as opposed to, say, more familiar projects that such as extractive industries like coal mining. And, feel free to disagree. But if that's the case, what's your sense for how these renewable energy development projects are being received by the types of Kentuckians who would be doing the hands-on development work? Do you have a sense for how they've responded to it so far? And we're in the early stages of a lot of this work, so I do want to flag that. That being said, no one's going to argue with being able to, as a subcontractor, employ their 25 to 30 employees at the local level, right? I mean, nobody's going to argue with that contract that employs their people and provides a couple years worth of consistent work. Now, whenever you start to double down on that, the reality that the clean energy is being purchased by the largest advanced manufacturing plant in Toyota's entire world fleet, right? And that is enabling jobs in our neck of the woods here in Central Kentucky. And then, you've got the investment that Toyota's making in Georgetown around their electric vehicle batteries. That's going to require even more clean energy. And so, it starts to catapult or build momentum for itself. And then all of a sudden, whenever you've diversified our energy mix in the state and you can recruit, the next advanced manufacturing or advanced energy entity into the state. And, University of Kentucky and University of Louisville have done a great job in prioritizing advanced energy research. And so, we're not even talking about research and development right now. R&D investment from the federal government around clean energy, advanced energy
and advanced manufacturing and domestic supply chains is like nothing we've seen. And so the repercussions of that going forward are going to create even more jobs. Then you have economic development. And, I think it's a financial and economic development opportunity here. Kentucky is at the bottom of the threshold of clean energy production state. But just like with the Kara reforms in the early 90s, we used to say, thank God for Mississippi, which is an awful thing to say. I've got family in Mississippi, right? But Kentucky's education system isn't at the bottom of the barrel anymore, but there was legislation that unlocked that reform effort. And we're at the very beginning of what will be really meaningful for communities across Kentucky, even our rural ones, which I'm really excited about.
And, I say, like, there was Kara, you said there was Kara, and it kind of unlocked more education spending, and it, leveled the playing field across poorer counties, and it had a real impact. Unfortunately, our legislature right now seems to be looking to take us in the opposite direction on renewable energy, right? The fact is, last session, they created new hurdles for utilities to shut down coal-fired power plants, right? And, created a new, whole body to oversee the work of the PUC, which is a body to engage with utilities about decisions about, like, shutting down power plants, right? But we don't trust the PUC because the governor still has too much power there or something. And they created a new entity to go on top of that, which, the utilities were going to make, or the coal companies were going to make sure they had, representation on. So I don't know, thoughts about that?
I mean, I think it remains to be seen what the interaction between EPIC, the commission that you're mentioning, and the PSC, what that interaction looks like. I think that remains to be seen. We haven't even had any appointees onto EPIC yet, onto that commission. And so, I understand the desire to hold on to the previous economic development model for the state, right? I get that. But I mean, coal's been in decline since the 50s. Coal jobs in Kentucky have been in decline since the 50s. So the idea of a just transition for our communities, we needed that work to happen 50 years ago, 75 years ago, right? And so I think right now we have an opportunity to diversify our mix. And I know people are looking at nuclear too, right? And so, like, this is a much broader conversation. I'm biased towards solar. I'm head of our Kentucky Solar Energy Industries Association, right? I care about solar, and I think solar is a mechanism for creating a heck of a lot of jobs and doing a heck of a lot of economic development quick. But what that looks like from a legislative standpoint, I think that eventually, whenever jobs are created in communities across Kentucky, and it recruits the next corporate entity in, I think it could change hearts and minds. It's not going to happen overnight, but at the end of the day, the buck stops at the end of your driveway. And if the end of your driveway has someone who's making great wages and is able to provide for their family, then that matters. And I think that that's an opportunity we have. We have to hire as many local people as possible, though. We can't bring in waves of workers from outside of the state. We have to take care of our own on this a little bit too. And so I hope that all the developers across state prioritize that. It's a good opportunity. I'm excited about it. And we're just at the start of it.
Well, and Brad, thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate you sharing your perspective with us and the great work you guys are doing over there at Edelen Renewables. Kimberly, any thoughts you wanted to add for Brad before we let him go?
I just have a statement, actually. This has been very, very interesting, and I learned a lot tonight. So I just want to say thank you.
You bet. Thanks for having me.
And I do think
I'm no Adam Edelen on a podcast, but I'll play second fiddle if I have to.
Well, we're glad to have you. Your first chair here. You didn't call us at the last minute to say I couldn't make it. So
That's right.
No, we appreciate you juggling your schedule to be here. I know you're putting aside important errands to run. But I do want to just say, the description you've had, like, we didn't talk about climate change. We didn't talk about rising sea levels. We didn't talk about forests catching on fire. All we talked about was jobs and economic investment. So I think it's really remarkable that there are folks who are aligned against action on climate change. And what they're really against is economic activity and local jobs.
If we can create jobs and it improves the GDP of a county, and there's better tax revenue for the county, and it creates a small business here or there. I mean, like the ripple effect, it's hard to measure all this, but the ripple effect of all that could be a really, really important turning point for our state.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think the reflexive opposition to climate action is a real problem, especially in a state like Kentucky, where one party has such a huge influence in the legislature, right? The idea that we're going to be anti-EV because it's woke to drive an EV or to use solar, that's just, we're cutting off our nose to spite our face, because we've got the two biggest battery plants in the country are in Kentucky, and you've got half of the more than half of our state who are hearing their legislature tell them, yeah, don't buy an EV because that's a scam or whatever, right? No, if no one buys the EVs, and those big battery plants aren't going to go very far, right? You got to have the market too. So we're in a very weird spot in this state. We obviously need the economic activity. The fact that coal companies are signing long-term leases to put solar on their their left behind acreage just goes to show that just do the math and do the right thing for your community. Quit dying on a stupid hill over climate change, right? Let's just do the right thing for our area. That's my soapbox, and now I'm stepping off it. Thank you so much, Brad. Really do appreciate your perspective and your information.
Thanks, y'all. Take care.
Sorry about that. It was an unintended diatribe. It's just there's so many available on this subject matter. So we've got a call to action, and then Kimberly's going to close us out. We do have one thing we want to do, right? So we want to thank our two amazing guests. We really appreciate Hadley. We appreciate Brett. Really fantastic. And what we want to do is urge you to take action. What we've just heard, whether it's the issue of abortion, whether it's the issue of climate change, our state has a lot of work to do. So we'd like to invite you to join our election campaign kickoff. We are fighting against Amendment 2. We want to make sure that public dollars stay in public schools. We want to make sure that there are more folks in Frankfort to stand against Kentucky's outrageous abortion restrictions, to fight for reproductive justice in the General Assembly. We want to, fight for folks specifically like Adam Moore. We want to keep Sherilyn Stevenson. So please sign up. We're planning on an election campaign kickoff in September. We want to let you know about it. So head to our homepage where you can sign up and actually be on our email list to make sure you get updates from us. You can also follow us on Facebook, join our Facebook group. But we definitely have a homepage. It's progressky.org, I'm pretty sure. And you can sign up and join our email list there. So that's what's going on. We, as I said at the top of the show, we are less than 80 days away from the election. So it's time to kick it into high gear. We have got a lot of work to do in just 76 days, and we need everyone on board. Just saw in the chat, looks like our friend Sandy is getting to work for Kamala Harris, which is phenomenal. But we've got a lot of wonderful local candidates to work for as well. And thank you all for tuning in this week. Kimberly, take us on home.
All right, Aaron. This was an absolutely wonderful show tonight. And you know what? As old as you get, you can still learn some new stuff. But Progress Kentucky is a nonprofit organization registered with the Kentucky Secretary of State and organized as a 501c4. We are affiliated with the Indivisible Project, the Commonwealth Alliance for Voter Engagement, otherwise known as CAVE, and are also proud members of the Forward Kentucky Network. Progress Kentucky's goal is to educate, organize, increase voter turnout, and advance a progressive agenda through civic engagement. Make sure that you join us next week because we'll have a great guest as well. Tonight's show, the production of tonight's show was by our very own Nate Orshan. And we thank him so much because also he wrote and performs our theme song that you hear on there. You can find more information and music at natosongs.com. That's NATO songs.com. And if you missed our weekly live stream or Facebook or YouTube, audio podcast and our show notes are available on Apple, Google, Spotify, and just about wherever you get your podcast. And when you do listen to the podcast, please leave us a 5-star review. Logo and some graphic content was provided by Couchfire Media. Thank you so much for allowing us to be in your life today, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you.